Hello, everybody. My name is Jackson Koons.
And I'm Jake Hoskins.
Today, we're going to talk about data privacy laws.
So, what is data privacy? So, basically, data privacy laws are laws that are put in place to regulate and kind of restrict on how businesses and organizations can handle the personal information of others. It gives individuals more rights over the information and data that they give these businesses and organizations. And it kind of puts more of an emphasis on keeping the sensitive data that they give to companies more private. And this can include things like financial information and intellectual data or property. And those could be social security number or just health health records for different people. And one of the driving forces behind data privacy is just the ethical usage from business and organizations and how they handle that information. So some statistics that we found, we looked at the Pew Research Center's website, and it actually showed that 72% of Americans in 2023 said that they know little to nothing about data privacy laws in the United States, while 27% of Americans say that they know some or a great deal about data privacy laws, which is a decrease from 2019 when the number was 37%. And I think this makes sense just based on the fact that so many new laws are coming out, which is making it way more complicated, and it's hard to kind of keep up with all of that going on.
So, before we take a deeper dive into data privacy, we need to understand the history of it. We start out with the Privacy Act of 1974, and this governs how personal data can be collected and used. Companies cannot disclose your personal information without the consent of the individual prior. The next act is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. This act is better known as the HIPAA Act, created in 1996. This creates standards for how medical patients' data can be used, and it also gives them the right to see their health information. This applies to any healthcare provider or government entity that in the United States. The next act is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, better known as the COPA Act. This was enacted in 1998, and this act prevented companies from exploiting data of children under 13 years old. They must obtain consent from a parent or guardian prior, and it was popularized by Facebook and Twitter requiring the age of the users on their app to be at least 13 years old. The next one is the California Consumer Privacy Act, which is the CCPA. This was in 2018, and it is one of the strictest data privacy laws. And again, it protects personal and sensitive information that businesses collect. So, since the state of California has enacted this act, many states have followed and tried to replicate this act for their own state because it has been so effective.
Yeah, so some of the importance and kind of the impact of these laws that they're having, it just basically has it gives more control and protection over things like the personal information of people's data, the misuse of data, the reduction of market targeting, and it just creates trust between businesses and individuals, which is the biggest thing. You just need to make sure that everything you have is secure and you can trust whatever business or organization that you're sharing your information with. Now, the next thing is the rights of individuals. I'm going to go over four. The first one is the right to access. This basically just gives individuals a copy of all their data and then gives them a reason of why their data is being used. And this just shows them kind of deeper lawfulness and just the ethical reasons for why that's going on. The next is the right to be forgotten. Individuals all have the right to have their personal data erased, basically if they feel like the data is no longer needed or it's just kind of irrelevant at this point. The next is the right to rectification. This is that the information that the business holds, it's not true or it's false or inaccurate. And that means that the individual can actually request that the data be fixed or rectified in the case. And then the last one is the right to data portability. And this just gives individuals the right to obtain their own personal information or their data, and then they can send it across to a different website or service for different purposes, whatever those may be.
So now that we know more about data privacy, here are some applications to data privacy. So financial transactions are some of the biggest parts of data privacy and individuals that care about this particular information. So financial transactions, they govern what personal information and financial corporations can collect and use their information. They also must maintain safeguards to protect that personal information. This includes safeguards against pretexting, and this is something that scammers use to manipulate their victims and access private information through emails, links, and phishing. Scammers particularly target senior citizens because they did not grow up with technology and using the internet. So they're a very easy target to take advantage of. They use familiar looking emails and links to viruses that attack their personal information, such as their credit cards and their banking info, which are very important, and they can end up stealing their money because of it. Some more applications. We have the Children's Privacy Act again, the COPA Act. This is children under 13 not being able to share their personal information without parental consent. Some violations under COPA are allowing marketing networks to collect personal information without the consent prior, like signing up for Twitter, signing up for Facebook, and platforms like that. A relevant example that we see is Google and YouTube in 2019. They paid out over $170 million in settlements from sharing personal information about children without parental consent prior. YouTube used identifiers, better known as cookies, to specifically target ads for viewers based on their data and their watch history on the platform.
So like I said earlier, ethics is a big driving factor into data privacy and keeping all that information locked down. So the first thing that I think is important is transparency. Obviously, people want to make sure that how their data is being used and processed is very transparent between the business and the individual. And they just want to make sure that it's being used properly. The next along those lines is data protection. They want to make sure that they have all the best security for all their personal information and data, and that it's not going to be leaked to bring potential consequences like identity theft or potentially financial loss. And the last thing is they just want to make sure their data is accurate. Maintaining accurate data ensures that they will not be manipulated, and they can all make the appropriate and accurate life decisions that won't lead to any sort of consequences in the future.
Some challenges involving data privacy. So recently, there's been a rapid growth of data. There are 1.7 megabytes of data created every single second. This takes a lot of effort to protect that quantity of data. This creates issues such as data breaches, which cost companies millions of dollars, and they have to pay large amounts of money for cybersecurity, and they still run the risk of data breach, even though they have these things in place. This leads to lawsuits and companies losing millions of dollars. Just for reference, in 2000, there were 54.5 exabytes of data out on the internet. And now, most recently in 2020, there are over 6,800 exabytes of data out there, which just shows how much more difficult it is to protect all of that type of data.
So some global trends that are going on right now, over 100 countries, and it's growing, have data privacy laws in place. And then by 2024, the expectation is that 75% of the global population will have their data protected under regulations in place. And states are also continuing to have more data privacy laws, like Jackson talked about. And this just ensues the protection of the residents. And then the amount of fines are actually increasing, as well as the costs that are involved with the data privacy misuse. And then it's shown that cookies will potentially be eliminated. And by 2023, Google announced that they will stop supporting third-party cookies on their sites. And basically, cookies are just small files of information that a web server generates and sends to a web browser. Thanks.
Thank you.